A few years ago, I had a financial problem that millions of Americans quietly live with every single day. I had a job, I was earning money, I was paying my bills. From the outside, everything looked fine. But I had one serious problem. If my income suddenly disappeared, I wouldn't survive for long. 1 month without a paycheck could create a crisis. 2 months could create debt, and 3 months could completely change my life. Then one day, I realized something uncomfortable. I wasn't actually financially secure. I was simply one paycheck away from finding out how financially insecure I really was. So I decided to do something that seemed almost impossible on a low income. I decided to build 1 full year of emergency savings. Not $1,000, not just 3 months of expenses, 12 months. And the way I did it completely changed how I think about money. Because building an emergency fund isn't really about having a high income. It's about creating a system that protects your future before your future needs protection. If you want more practical lessons about money, saving, and building financial freedom in the real world, subscribe to the channel. Because most people don't need more financial motivation. They need a financial system that actually works. Now let's go back to the beginning. When people hear the words emergency fund, they usually think about a simple savings goal, maybe $1,000, maybe 3 to 6 months of expenses. But an emergency fund is much more than a number sitting in a bank account. It's the difference between a problem and a disaster. Imagine your car breaks down. If you have no savings, you may need a credit card. If you can't pay the credit card, interest starts growing. Now you're not just dealing with a broken car, you're dealing with debt. Then imagine losing your job at the same time. Suddenly the emergency has multiplied. This is how financial problems become financial crises. One unexpected event creates a bill. The bill creates debt. The debt creates interest. The interest creates more pressure. And eventually, your entire financial life starts moving backward. An emergency fund interrupts that chain. It gives you time. And time is one of the most valuable financial assets in the world. When you have savings, you don't have to make desperate decisions immediately. You don't have to accept the first job you can find. You don't have to borrow money from family. You don't have to put every emergency on a credit card. You have options, and financial freedom is often just another word for having options. But when I first decided to build a full year of savings, there was one problem. My income was low. I couldn't simply save thousands of dollars every month. I couldn't cut one expensive vacation and suddenly become financially secure. So I stopped asking the question most people ask, how much money can I save this month? Instead, I asked a more important question. How much money do I actually need to survive? That question changed everything, because most people calculate their emergency fund based on their lifestyle. But an emergency fund should be based on your survival expenses. There is a difference between what you spend and what you need. Let's say someone spends $4,000 every month. But inside that $4,000 are restaurants, subscriptions, entertainment, shopping, expensive upgrades, and other lifestyle expenses. If they lose their income, they may not need $4,000 per month to survive. Maybe their essential expenses are closer to $2,500. Housing, utilities, food, transportation, insurance, minimum debt payments. The first step was separating needs from wants. Not because wants are bad, but because financial clarity requires honesty. So I created 2 numbers, my normal monthly spending and my emergency monthly spending. The difference between those 2 numbers was enormous, and that difference made my goal possible. Instead of thinking, I need $48,000 to survive for a year, I realized I needed to build my emergency fund around the cost of maintaining my basic life. This is one of the most important financial lessons. You don't become financially secure by earning more money alone. You become financially secure by understanding where your money is going. The second thing I did was stop treating savings as whatever money was left at the end of the month. Because there is almost never money left at the end of the month. There is always something else to buy. Another bill, another subscription, another small purchase, another reason to spend. So I changed the order. Instead of earning money, spending money, and saving whatever remained, I saved first, even when the amount was small. Sometimes it was a significant amount. Sometimes it was barely noticeable. But the important thing was consistency, because saving $50 doesn't feel powerful. Saving $100 doesn't feel life-changing. But saving $100 every month for years creates something most people underestimate: momentum. The first few $100s were difficult. The first 1,000 felt like a major achievement. But after that, something changed psychologically. The money stopped feeling like money I could spend. It started feeling like protection. And this is where many people make a mistake. They keep their emergency fund in the same account they use for everyday spending. Then, when they want something, they see the balance and think, I have money. But emergency savings should not feel available for normal spending. I wanted my emergency fund to be difficult enough to access that I wouldn't casually touch it. Not impossible to access, just inconvenient. Because convenience is one of the biggest enemies of saving money. If spending is easy and saving is difficult, you will spend. So I automated the process. Money moved into savings before I had the opportunity to spend it. This is a simple idea, but it is incredibly powerful. You don't need extraordinary discipline if your system makes the right decision automatically. Think about it. Every month, thousands of people try to make better financial decisions through willpower. But willpower is temporary. Systems are permanent. If you rely on motivation to save, you'll save when you're motivated. If your system automatically saves money, you'll save even on the days when you don't feel like it. And those ordinary days are what build extraordinary results. But there was another important lesson. I didn't try to save a full year's worth of expenses immediately. I divided the goal into stages. First, I focused on building a small emergency fund. Then I focused on 1 month of expenses, then 3 months, then 6 months, and eventually the goal became 12 months. This is important because huge financial goals can create psychological paralysis. When someone sees a goal like $20,000 or $30,000, they may think, I'll never get there. So they don't start. But if the same person focuses on the next $500, the goal suddenly feels possible. The next $500 becomes $1,000. The $1,000 becomes 1 month of expenses. 1 month becomes 3. The goal doesn't become easier. You simply become stronger financially as you move toward it. And this is the part nobody talks about. Building an emergency fund doesn't just change your bank account, it changes your behavior. When I had no savings, every unexpected expense felt like an attack. A medical bill, a car repair, a broken appliance, a sudden reduction in income. Every problem created panic. But as the emergency fund grew, the same problems became manageable. The expense didn't disappear. The bill didn't become cheaper, but my reaction changed. And that is the real power of savings. Savings don't prevent every emergency. They prevent emergencies from controlling your life. Now, I want to be clear about something. You do not need to build a 1-year emergency fund immediately. For many people, the first goal should be a small financial buffer, then 1 month of essential expenses, then 3 months. The right number depends on your job stability, your income, your family responsibilities, your health situation, and your personal circumstances. Someone with a highly stable job may need a different emergency fund than someone whose income changes every month. Someone with dependents may need more protection than someone living alone. There is no single magic number, but there is one universal principle. The less predictable your income and expenses are, the more valuable cash reserves become. And the lower your income, the more important it is to build the habit of saving. Because when you have a high income, a financial mistake may be painful. When you have a low income, the same mistake can be devastating. That is why saving money on a low income can actually be one of the most powerful financial habits you develop. You are not just saving dollars. You are building the ability to create a gap between your income and your spending. And that gap is where wealth begins. Most people wait to save until they earn more. They say, I'll start when I get a raise. Then they get the raise. Their lifestyle expands. And they still have nothing saved. The problem wasn't always their income. The problem was that their expenses were growing at the same speed. This is called lifestyle inflation. You earn more. You spend more. You earn even more. You spend even more. And somehow, your financial stress never disappears. The solution isn't necessarily to live an extremely miserable life. The solution is to make sure that every increase in income doesn't immediately become an increase in spending. If your income rises by $500 per month, you don't have to spend all $500. Maybe you use part of it to improve your life, and part of it to buy future freedom. That is how a low-income saver eventually becomes financially secure. Not through one massive financial decision, through hundreds of small decisions repeated over time. And eventually, I reached the point where I had built a full year of essential expenses and savings. The strange thing was that the money didn't make me feel rich. It made me feel calm. And that is a feeling most people underestimate. There is a huge difference between having money and having financial security. A person can earn $200,000 a year and still feel terrified of losing their job. Another person can earn much less and sleep peacefully because they have savings, low expenses, and control over their money. The number in your bank account matters, but the relationship between your income, expenses, and savings matters even more, because the real goal isn't to become obsessed with saving every dollar. The real goal is to reach a point where money stops controlling every decision you make. An emergency fund is not exciting. It doesn't give you the instant dopamine of buying something new. Nobody sees your savings account and compliments your lifestyle. But when life suddenly goes wrong, that money becomes incredibly valuable. It buys you time. It protects your choices. It prevents panic. And sometimes it protects you from making the worst financial decision of your life. So if you're starting today, don't focus on building a full year of savings. Focus on your first $500, then your first $1,000, then 1 month of essential expenses. Create a separate savings account. Automate whatever amount you can. Reduce expenses that don't truly matter. And whenever your income increases, send a portion of that increase toward your future before your lifestyle absorbs all of it. Because the most important step is not saving a huge amount of money. The most important step is proving to yourself that you can save consistently. Once you build that identity, the numbers can grow. A year of emergency savings may seem impossible when you are starting with nothing. But every large financial cushion begins with one small decision: to keep a little money today so that your future self has more choices tomorrow. And maybe that's the real purpose of an emergency fund. It's not about preparing for the worst because you expect your life to go wrong. It's about preparing for the worst so that when life does go wrong, you don't have to become desperate. Because the ultimate goal of money isn't to look rich, it isn't to impress people, and it isn't even to have the biggest number in your bank account. The ultimate goal of money is freedom. And sometimes, freedom starts with something as simple as having enough savings to say, "I'll be okay."